Hello, everyone. It's 12 o'clock, Wednesday, 6th of April, 2022. We're back for our third webinar of the day, of the morning, of the afternoon now, I guess we can say. This one's on customer journey management, embracing that digital transformation for a unified view of the customer. How's that for a mouthful of a title? But we're going to unpack that with this great panel of people here. My face looks a bit bright because I'm sat in direct sunlight. I've tried to bring the blind down a bit, but yeah, hopefully you can see me. And if you've just joined us today, welcome. Thanks for coming along. If you've come back to your third session of the day, thank you very much for sticking with us as well. We've had some brilliant panels this morning so far, some great audience participation, and we're looking forward to more of the same now, and I have no reason to suspect that we won't have that. I'm Darren, your moderator. For those of you that have just joined, I am the chairman of a skincare brand called Scrubbed, chairman of a PR company called Liberty, and founder of my own consultancy, which is in its 5th year, unbelievably, and that time has flown by. So great to have you here with us. I love doing these events. Talking about the Retail Bulletin events, though, for this year, do go on to the Retail Bulletin website to check out future digital webinars that we'll be running, a couple in June, for example, on customer experience and the omnichannel world as well. But what we're really excited about is our real life Touch a Real 3D Person event in Birmingham, NEC on the 8th and 9th of November, a 2-day conference. Loads of fantastic speakers and content being lined up. We're busy beavering away behind the scenes on that. And even more excitingly, on day one in the evening, we're going to have a bit of shindig and get together and have a bit of a party to celebrate Retail Bulletin's 20 years commenting and running events on the industry. So yeah, 8th and 9th of November, Birmingham NEC, put it in your diary. It will be a lovely warm up for the Christmas season and great to do a real in-person event. Let's meet these people on screen with me and get them to tell you who they are, and then we can crack on getting some of that compelling content that I know they're going to share with you today. So I'm going to start, if I may, with Leona. Hello, Leona. Welcome. Tell us who you are.
Hi, so hi everyone, my name's Leona de Graft. I'm VP of Ecom at Levi's. I'm only 8 weeks into my journey, so be kind to me. But Levi's is a brand that I've looked on and loved for quite some time, so I'm really excited to join the brand. From a brand point of view, we've got amazing heritage and exciting brand stories to tell. And equally, we're embarking on a pretty big digital transformation. So I'm happy to share some of that insight with you today.
Excited to have you here. Thank you, and congrats on your new role as well. I'm sure everyone will be very kind to you as well. Great to have you. Nick, welcome. Tell us about you.
Hi, Darren. Hi, everyone. Lovely to virtually meet you all. My name is Nick. I'm Nick King. I'm an Insight Director at Auto Trader, the largest marketplace for cars in the UK. I'm a consumer psychologist, been fascinated by people and technology. I've been working in marketing and research for over 30 years, and I've been at Auto Trader for 15 years. And we just have a huge amount of data because we have a huge amount of traffic. And I hope to share some of those learnings from some of the research we do with all of you today. And great to be here.
Great to have you, sir. Welcome. Chris, over to you. Who are you?
Hey, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Chris Bull. I'm CTO at Stitched. We are a stitched.co.uk. We sell made-to-measure curtains and blinds exclusively online. If any of you have ever bought curtains and blinds, you can probably understand why that's quite complicated. They're a very complicated product, especially when you're dealing with made-to-measure and essentially infinite customizations. So yeah, we are trying to nail that on the internet using everything we can: augmented reality, 3D, as much data as we can possibly get our hands on. Yeah, trying to make it easy.
Well, welcome, and lots to talk about, I'm sure. And thank you for joining us. James, who are you?
Good morning, or is it afternoon now? But
afternoon,
hello, everybody. Good to meet you. Yeah, we can say afternoon. Good to meet everybody. Great to be here today. I'm James Coughlan, and I'm a omnichannel global digital strategist. My career story recognises my understanding of enterprise technologies and really kind of cutting through to the heart of the problems in organisations. So my key values over my career span driving online revenue and profit, delivering online performance improvements, but also improving customer experience engagement, which I know we're here talking about today. Organisations where I've landed some of these include Vodafone, Northgate, Bullet Group, Inspired Education, and following a very public administration in 2013, HMV. And at present, I'm program lead at the Bourne Group, helping Telefonica Germany with their significant global transformation. So really great to be here with all of you today, and very much looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, James, and thank you for bringing your expertise to the panel. I appreciate it. Last but not least, Rachel, over to you.
Hello, so yeah, good afternoon everyone. I'm Rachael Kotadia, the head of marketing here at RedEye. So for those of you that might not have heard of RedEye, we are a marketing automation company. So we offer technology, but also the support to help brands grow and scale their automations. But me personally, I'm a very keen data-driven marketer. So I'm involved at RedEye, sort of providing thought leadership and best practices to help and educate my fellow B2C marketers into the ways that they can improve, drive revenue, customer loyalty, or by better use of their customer data.
Thanks for being here. And I should also say RedEye have sponsored this webinar, so thank you for that. And you've also helped us in previous events, so we really appreciate it. You know, our friends and sponsors make these events happen. So thank you to you and the team at RedEye as well. Let's get started. That sun is not complaining. I'm loving it, but I just need to do a bit more adjusting because I look orange at the moment for some reason. Karen from the Retail Bulletin was convinced I put a sun lamp on myself for the webinar, but I can promise you it's the real deal. There is real sun in central London this morning. Those of you that were in webinar number 1 will also know that my dog made a very sudden and loud join of the webinar. She didn't do it for number 2. But she certainly made her appearance felt on webinar number 1. She seems to be sleeping peacefully as we are live on air now, but who knows? So Scamp may join us at some point. More importantly, though, the audience needs to join us. And so, as you all know from the previous webinars, the Q&A button is for you. You can ask a specific question to one of our panelists, or you can just ask a generic question, or feel free to comment or add opinion to anything that you may be hearing from the content today. The Q&A button, wherever it is on your device, is yours to use. And I promise that any question that gets asked will be answered within the next 50 minutes or so. Let's get cracking. I'm going to come over to Leona, first of all, over at Levi's. And really, you know, you're new in role, but how are you seeing customer service being utilised to improve your on-site customer journey?
Yeah, so I think like most brands, and I'm sure everybody says the same thing, the customer is at the heart of our strategy at Levi's. And I say that and I actually mean that too. I think when we think about optimizing the customer journey, like we often default as like e-com leads to like these big, flashy, new functionality opportunities. But often our customers really just want operational excellence and to be able to shop frictionlessly across our sites. So core to our site optimization, most of our improvements are based on our post-purchase and post-fulfillment customer feedback. We get that on a weekly basis, and we serve it up in terms of surveys and emails from our customers. The idea is that we're constantly obsessing over that customer journey and optimizing the journey in real time. So anything that causes a customer friction, it could be as small as not being able to add your house name into the address field because there isn't enough characters. Like anything small, we try to fix it in real time. And we do this via the help of our continuous improvement team. So our digital product teams that actually sit in San Francisco and our global team. So it's this kind of constant loop of customer feedback about how we can improve that customer journey. And that's really what drives the operational excellence. Outside of the customer service kind of insights that we get directly from our customers, we also run large scale site audits, and this helps guide some of our annual roadmap planning. So things like what are those big functionality items that we want to improve across the site. But I'd probably say that I pivot towards looking at our customer service team and understanding really what's going right, but most importantly, what's going wrong so that we can fix that as quickly as possible and offer a truly frictionless experience across our site.
Thank you very much. And if you want to ask Leona any questions about what she's just said, or indeed Levi's in general, or anything on this subject matter, do please use that Q&A button. Thank you for kicking things off for us. Take a sip of something. I'll come back to you soon. Nick, when you and I have interacted before, you've talked a lot about forced tech adoption. So this forced tech adoption we went through because of the pandemic. How has that impacted customer expectations? And I'm really interested by the concept of forced tech. I've never thought of it in that way before. So unpack that for me a bit.
Yes. Oh, well, thanks, Darren. Yes. So we have been through a forced tech adoption. And actually, example A is this. We're all used to doing Zoom and Teams calls. Go back to February 2020, and I hadn't ever done a Teams call with a video. Just didn't do it. And then last year, I did 132 presentations to our customers on Teams calls, which is ridiculous. It's got so easy. And this has an impact on us as human beings. We didn't see COVID coming. We didn't see it's hard to look into the future, but when things come along and change us, it has an impact on us as human beings, because how we're feeling about things has an impact on how we react to things. There was a study done in 2011 with some judges, and judges were seen to be human beings, fallible and flawed. If you were up against a judge, you were more likely to be granted parole if it was early in the day or after a break such as lunch. That's ridiculous. Surely a judge should be completely linear and straight, but no, if they're feeling different and something's going on around them, then they will change their mind and do things differently. And that's exactly what we've all been through. This is a strange world. And what happens when you have the sort of irresistible force of a lockdown with remote working colliding with the barriers to adoption we used to have? And those barriers used to be your IT department says, oh, no, what about the firewalls? We can't possibly upload this quickly, or we've got things in place. What happens when you have those things colliding is you see adoption happening very quickly. None more so, days or weeks, not months or years, none more so than our amazing NHS. But I genuinely am, as well as working in marketing research, I was a musician. I blew my ears away being in a band. I've only got one ear, and I'm deaf. And in my good ear, I had pain during a lockdown, and I had to get a hospital appointment. I couldn't get a hospital appointment, so I had a video call with my doctor on the phone, a video call. And he said, if you need a consultant, we can get that today as well on the NHS. This is ridiculously fast. That's super quick, and that will have an impact on our brains, because we like things to happen immediately because we use our primal brains a lot. We like theatre and reactions, and that's what we like to do as human beings. But during COVID, we've had to use our rational brain, the more thinking, slow part, because we had to have a jab, didn't want a jab, had to have a mask, couldn't go to the pub, couldn't go on holiday. We had to make decisions. But today, for consumers, we all normally as humans like our primal brain just to be reacting to theatre and simple, easy things. So as Leona said, making things easy. Video. If you're selling a car, in my world, automotive, why isn't there a video of every car I'm looking at? Because I can go into as seen on screen, and there's a video of a bloke wearing a shirt, and it's 25 quid, and I can see a video. And that's brilliantly primal brain friendly. So what we're seeing is this is moving towards digital retailing. Digital retailing is a future, but it's not the only way you're going to buy things. For humans, us today, let me buy something the way I want to buy something. Don't force me down one particular route. In car buying, some people want to go and touch and feel the car, but they may want to do all of their research and organize finance online. So make it easy for me. So there has been, and there is going to be, a continuous change in how consumers react and interact digitally.
It's a really interesting subject, and I feel like we could do a whole webinar on that actually. But if you've got anything that you'd like to add or question on what Nick's just said, please do get involved. Thanks for kicking that off, Nick, and I'll come back to you shortly, sir, as well. Chris, data literacy. Try saying that fast a few times. How does data literacy in an organization drive better decision making?
Yeah. So I guess I'm lucky. We're a small company, we're a startup, and kind of so I'm guessing not everyone in the audience has the same kind of benefits, and also we're completely digital. So again, like I know everyone is working more on their computers these days, but definitely one thing we've noticed is that because we're budget constrained, we're still a startup, we're still kind of approaching our Series A. I can't just go and sign up for every single like data tool we want and just throw tens of thousands of pounds of licenses a year on something. What has been incredibly good for us is actually just teaching people SQL. Like when it comes to customer data, if you're within your organization, if you can actually get your data warehouse up and running, which these days is honestly not that hard, thanks to lots of wonderful tools I could talk about at length, but the cost of all this stuff has just come down massively in the last few years in terms of actually like storing and accessing data in a way that's fundamentally like just completely different. Like it was some of these things were so hard before. So if you can actually corral your data and then get your organization onto a point where at least some of the people who need data can actually find it themselves through learning SQL and simple things like that. Like we have found, marketing now they can't do everything, but if they want to see usages of a particular fabric, answering questions and essentially like as they have them, without having to spend hundreds of thousands on expensive software licenses, it really can change everything. And it's one of those things that's sort of like, every new data tool wants to pitch itself as like, this will solve the problem. But actually, like, if your staff are smart enough, and they probably are, a couple of weeks of learning the basics of SQL will probably get the same job done. And then you're also building the capacity within the company for when things aren't within the scope of these expensive tools you're using. In terms of data literacy, I kind of meant knowing SQL, but it really has been a bit of a superpower for us. And if you're in a technical organization with a technical leadership, it's one of those simple things you can kind of push across the company. It's not everyone learning to code. It's more like slightly advanced Excel.
Thank you for that, sir. Thank you. And any questions for Chris on what he's just said there, please do get involved and use the Q&A button. Thank you, sir. I'll come back to you shortly. James, if I'm a business watching now or a retailer watching now, and I've got significant data visibility gaps in my organization, what are the options? How do I get past anything that's preventing me have a single customer view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a challenge that's probably more common than businesses, retailers want to admit. But word of advice would be, don't panic, because you end up running before you can walk. You've got to stay solutions focused and, hold on to the fact that a single view in some capacity will be possible. My advice would be to create a data focus group. As a starting point. Don't make it someone's part-time or do it when you have time task, because it will never get done, and certainly not to its full potential. And obviously we have to remember this is data, and so it needs to have representation from all departments who have access to or rely on data within the business. Don't just make it IT's problem or rely on a sole IT solution, which may later end up conflicting the greater good or needs of others within the business. So the focus of the core group should be around process mapping. It should be around understanding the customer journey, building on what Leona was saying earlier on. Don't, if you've got international businesses, satellite offices, and you've got requirements internationally as well, make sure that they are informed, that they understand the objective and the desired outcome of this focus group, not just we need access to, or can you support this task group with. Give everyone support, bring them along the journey, help them to understand the benefits for all. And then that way, it will be much, much easier to understand what you do have access to, and those data points will become clearer and probably more swiftly. So in summary, it's about setting the expectations, work in a agile fashion, particularly for planning, and to help everyone understand it's not an overnight success. It's potentially years or decades worth of data and legacy ways of working that you're trying to improve on here.
Thank you. And I've got a lovely segue now, actually coming into Rachel, if I may. So Rachel, thank you for waiting patiently. It's always difficult being the last panelist to speak, but thank you so much. Leading on from what we've just been talking about, why is a real, emphasis on the real, single customer view important for a marketeer?
Yeah, exactly. And actually just, following on from what Leona said right at the beginning, is all about the customer. So any effective marketing strategy is ultimately built around understanding the customer. So if you don't have that true understanding of your customer, then how can you actually deliver, you know, personalized and really good brand experiences, which, you know, customers now 100% expect? You know, you might be doing promotions, you know, saying the wrong messages to the wrong people, sending the wrong communications at the wrong time. So all of that ultimately is that your marketing becomes inefficient because you don't understand, you know, your customers. And, you know, those marketers that still send the same communications to everyone, you know, sometimes it's coined as batch and blast. The world really has moved on. So it's really important for those B2C marketers to do the same and basically sort of evolve their marketing strategies focused around data. And as you know, said Nick was saying earlier, that rapid digital acceleration and forced tech that we've kind of gone through, actually for a marketer, it means that they actually might have collected or have access to a far more valuable amount of customer data. So obviously I really encourage them to sort of get true value from it. And actually we had a fun interactive quiz that we launched a couple of months ago, where we basically asked marketers questions on how well they were using their customer data. And it was basically coined as sort of this data demons quiz. So the persona at the end, you could either be sort of a devil, so basically you were doing nothing with it, or you were a data slayer and you were smashing it out of the park with, you know, everything you were doing. But actually 43% of people, when asked, said, you know, why can't you use your data effectively or personalize the customer experience? It's because the data was everywhere and it wasn't immediately actionable. So that is why a single customer view, having all of your data in that one place, it really enables the marketer to do better marketing. But obviously then, you know, what elevates it up to be a real single customer view? You know, some businesses in essence will pass off, you know, a single customer view as basically showing data that's available in that platform, which is often sort of like email engagement and transactions, maybe off the back of those emails. And actually, again, that was actually shown in the quiz results. You know, when asked, you know, what data do you use to drive your campaigns? Obviously, a high amount said, you know, personal data. So in 2020, there's still some marketers that believe first name personalization is personalization. Let's put that to one side. But actually, the next one was really sort of, you know, like transactional and email engagement. But having, you know, email transactions and email engagement together, that isn't a real, true single customer view. So a real single customer view, like I said, in my opinion, is then gathering all of that customer data that a marketer really needs and can use and can get benefit from. So it's offline as well as online. Your e-commerce, your data warehouses, your product stock trends, your channel engagements, and not just email, but also behavioral data. You know, and that's combined, it's connected, and obviously as a marketer, you have the ability to sort of really then understand how your customers are behaving. And obviously, so that single customer view then for a marketer should, you know, enable them to get some really interesting insights about their customers, maybe uncover trends, new segments or opportunities that they didn't know existed. And then I said it's actionable. They can use that data to then drive those customer experiences, even individual sort of personalization within email. Like I said, it's really the foundations of any data-driven marketing strategy. And so that's my take on why a single customer view is important for a marketer.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel, for that very insightful answer as well. And we'll come back to you shortly. We've actually got questions in. There's one perfectly timed for you, Leona, actually. So this is from Matt. Hi, Leona. How do Levi's manage the challenges around prioritization tech when it comes to obvious customer impacting challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that goes into like big road mapping discussions where you have to kind of like fight for CapEx spend and fight for resource to fix some of the issues, it's always kind of a difficult meeting. For us, like most people, it's around impact to the customer, in terms of revenue, complexity, and then we'll kind of roadmap out which ones take priority. For big things that kind of impacting the now, we do have like a fast track road mapping process where we can get things fixed within like a 2 to 3 week period, as we have a 3-week release cycle at Levi's. So I think that answers it. I think that bugs and things will fix quite immediately. And then in terms of the other kind of big functionality roadmap things, we look at revenue impact and complexity, of course. Being Europe as well, it's always a lot more complex versus some of our North American partners, because we have challenges around currency, language, sites in local language and in English. So we always try to approach it a little bit more of a European first, because it's often where the most complexity sits.
Got it. Thank you so much, Leona, and I will come back to you again shortly as well. Nick, over to you, please, sir. We talked about this forced tech earlier. I want to sort of continue that line with you, if I may. What impact has forced tech had on digital retailing?
Yeah, so really good question, and it has had an almost immediate effect. We get a huge amount of traffic on Auto Trader. We normally get 9 million unique users a month coming onto the site. It's since lockdown, since this forced tech adoption, we've got 11 million. That can have been driven, of course, by an upsurge in interest in buying cars, because who wants to go on public transport? We've seen that as a direct impact. But what we're seeing is that people are coming onto Auto Trader and spending more time and wanting to do more things. And obviously, I can only really talk about Auto Trader because that's our business. But what it really pushes is, can you make it easy for me? We've argued for a long time that the winners in digital retail, in whatever you're selling, are if you can nail these 4 tenets, which are simple, easy, quick, and transparent. And this isn't rocket science, but if you can make it simple for me, because we're all impatient now, great, I can do something without thinking about it, without having to look for instructions, I'll do it. If you can make it quick for me, because we're all impatient now, I mean, the other thing with forced tech adoption is we can get I can get meetings with people immediately, really, rather than having to wait 3 months to get people in a room. I can order something on Amazon in the morning. If I've got Prime, it'll arrive in the afternoon. Bang! I don't have to wait to watch something on TV anymore. I can go on catch up. I've got Netflix. This spoils us as human beings. So this makes us even more impatient and easy. But it's not easy to do this. We know from research, massive sample of car buyers, that 30% said if it was easier, I'd buy a car more often. Because it isn't very easy to buy a car, especially something like a car, because it's huge and it's expensive and it depreciates and it's the second biggest thing you'll buy off your house or flat. So can we make it easier? One of the ways we can help the industry make it easier is to allow me to do all of the research, everything I need to do online. Can I get the car delivered? Oh, can I reserve the car? Can I sort my finance out? Can I get a part exchange price for my car and get it picked up from me? Can I do virtually everything I can? So we're working on all of these things. We've been working on these things to try and help this tech adoption take off. And the more we do it, the more adoption we get, because we're being forced into this. My parents in their late 80s do Zoom calls. My dad's 89 tomorrow, and he does a Zoom call. He's 89. Why is an old man? My mum, who's in her mid-80s, does Rumba classes on a Zoom. What? This would never have happened a couple of years ago. Now we've got this mass take-up because it's easy. It is easy, in fact, to do. It isn't very hard. You put any barriers in way which stop me doing something, and then what do we all do? We go, oh, actually, I'll go the other way. Thanks very much. Anything that's a bit awkward. In my world, just to finish, electric vehicles are the future for internal combustion engine cars. Will no longer be sold new in 2030. So we've all got to drive electric vehicles, but there's loads of barriers in the way. Infrastructure, how do I charge it? The range isn't good enough. The price, I don't know, I haven't got a drive. They're more expensive. There's so many barriers. We've got early adopters buying it, and they're the wealthy individuals who live in wealthy areas with a drive and can afford one as a toy or a second car, but the mass majority we've got to get to are not finding it easy. So we have to try and make this change easy and simple, no barriers. Why do we all text on phones? Because it's easy. It's easy. You have, when text first arrived 20 years ago, you had to pay for every text. I think it was about 50p a text. I remember, I'm sorry, none of you are old enough to remember that, but it was bloody expensive. So you didn't do it. You thought, oh, I better save my text. And now we've got unlimited texts, unlimited calls. You go on holiday and you can do Wi-Fi calls to your kids at home on holiday for free on the hotel internet. Blimey. No barriers. So if we can get rid of barriers, that's what mass forced tech adoption does. It removes some of those barriers.
Nick, thank you. I'm smiling because of the text comment. I was very lucky to be one of the early gang at the wonderful network that was Orange back in the 90s. I spent 5 very happy years there. And when we launched texting, yeah, you had to pay per text, and it was something you added on as a bundle to your phone as well. Right. So and we were like, it'll never catch on. It's too complicated. And we were doing demos in stores, how to text. It brought back a smile. And so I'm certainly old enough to remember what you're talking about. So nice memory there. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Chris, I'm going to come on to you if I may. Chris, if I just can quickly ask you an opinion, actually, from we had an anonymous contributor. Thank you, anonymous. They're just asking about capturing feedback. I want to talk to you about customer service in a sec, but capturing feedback post-purchase, what's the best way? Email, QR code, something else?
We mostly use email, just because it's easy. We do, so we're sort of toying more with QR codes because we sell a physical product, and also our, like most made to measure things, you get your fabric samples, then you order the product. Same with sofas and all sorts of interior stuff. So we actually do, we have QR codes on our sample packs and stuff, but that's kind of before the purchase. And so we do send out a bit of stuff with with our curtains, and when they're delivered, there's installation guides and things like that. So there are QR codes and stuff on there, but we don't really use those to capture feedback. Also, because it's a very expensive product, people tend to be very chatty if things aren't even remotely right. So we get a lot of feedback from our customers almost immediately, which is great, because it means we're often, if something's going wrong, we hear about it quite quickly from CS.
Do you, sorry to bust in, do you allow for instant feedback? Can I actually chat to you while I'm fitting my curtains? Yeah,
totally. I mean, I think we wouldn't work if we couldn't. We use Intercom for that, but we allow you to book video calls. You can jump onto a video call from Intercom because there's a pretty simple Google Meet integration and things like that. Like we're doing it digitally, but realistically, it's also a very high touch service product. So we're kind of in a slow loop of like, okay, after doing things for a while, customer service might say, all right, could we build a product or build a feature that does this? So we might do that, and then suddenly we see less inquiries about this because we've put something that makes it accessible. But it's always especially because people are also anxious about, like, should I put yellow curtains up? Should I get ticking stripe? Should I there's a lot of ambiguity that just has to kind of go through CS.
Wow, sorry, Spotty's done.
Thank you. And I was going to ask you about sort of the whole superpowering customer service piece, but I think you've already answered some of that piece there as well on the back of that. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I think kind of, and with the like single customer view thing, it's basically, I'm not sure how much people are, this might be because I'm obviously on the technical side of things, but reverse ETL tools are the coolest things ever if you haven't seen them or used them. High Touch is one. It's basically easy. Like, we have ETL tools, so they take their Facebook ads and they put them in the data warehouse. Reverse ETL tools take stuff from the data warehouse and easily put them in places they need to be. So like, you can write a little piece of SQL that might calculate lifetime value and then say, hey, sync that to Salesforce or sync that to Intercom. And those that sort of work used to be really annoying, and now these tools have come out and they made it really easy. And for things like giving your single customer view, you can suddenly push all these computed metrics into Intercom, and they're just right there for the CS team. It's a literal superpower. The stuff that you can do out of the box these days is incredible. So
a literal superpower, no less. Perfect segue for me there, by the way, to go to James on this single customer view subject, because we have another anonymous comment. You're a shy bunch today. Thank you, anonymous. James, perhaps you can take this one for me. How are you seeing retailers gain that single customer view across all devices and bricks and mortar stores?
I think, to be quite honest with you, it's varying retailer by retailer of peers that I talk to in my network who are currently responsible for that type of thing just now. And I think one of the biggest barriers, as Nick was alluding to, was the fact that during the pandemic, for some of those retailers, data was still locked in what was happening in store. And so when everybody was shifted online, there was this disconnect in some cases between loyalty data and those segments and what those customers stood for and what they wanted versus, perhaps some of those customers never even transacting online before. And I think very quickly the retail world has had to learn that, look, omni-channel, whatever channel you're coming to us on, we need to know who you are, what it is you come to us for, what you like doing, where there are cross-sell and upsell opportunities. Let's work with you as a customer to make that easy. So, for me, I think it varies on retailer by retailer, but there are some interesting case studies coming out now, sort of 18 months on from the pandemic, of some of those retailers that did a really great job of Currys, for example, Currys PC World, great example of offering those video walkthroughs, where customers were used to going into one of those stores and having someone come up to them within a matter of moments and saying, how can I help you today? When you're forced online in that type of scenario, spanning the whole demographics out there, you need to be able to make sure that customers are transacting with you in something that they can relate to. And I think that was a really strong move.
All right, thank you, sir. And thank you to whoever asked that question. Hopefully that's covered off some of that for you. Rachel, I'm going to come to you again, if I may. Do you have any good examples that you can share with us about how anyone watching can use their data to maximize key areas of the customer journey?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm all really into the data. So I've actually got two examples, if I've got time to sort of go through them, and they sort of top and tail the ends of the customer journey. So the first one, obviously a key part of the sort of the customer journey is getting that second purchase from your customers. So you might have been able to acquire them through all your amazing discounts and sales you might have been offers and you might have been having, but actually only 27% of customers will purchase again if they're sort of left alone. So as a marketer, you really obviously need to, like I said, better use your data to really see how you can encourage that second purchase. So first thing is actually just building that single purchases segment. Do you even know as a brand actually how many customers have ever purchased with you once and how long ago that was? But obviously then, like I said, you can't just leave that part of single purchases and expect them to come back to you. So competition, as we've just said, is absolutely just a click away now. So you need to sort of think about potentially getting an automated campaign in place that can use sort of the data to sort of trigger that campaign at the right time. And I like to talk about things in terms of levels. So there's different ways that you can sort of grow and better use your customer data, and you can start to be more sophisticated over time. So the first sort of level, let's say, is just finding the most optimal time to send. So, you can look at what is the average time it takes someone to make that second purchase. And you can use sort of, an RFM analysis, so recency, frequency, monetary analysis that many sort of, automation providers can provide. So that might help you get a little bit more accurate, but ultimately it's looking at what is that average time. And then obviously you can use that to determine when your campaign can be sent. And then the second sort of level actually is looking at the most optimal groups. So overlay like engagement data, so out of those single purchases, do you even know which ones are actively browsing and actually kind of showcasing their hand to show I might be looking like making a second purchase. So you can use that sort of overlaying of engagement data. But actually, finally, what is the more sophisticated sort of top level is actually finding and targeting the individuals that might be showing signals and signs. So on top of your single customer view, you can sort of apply artificial intelligence and predictive models to sort of analyze the data and basically show which individuals are showing a high likelihood to make that second purchase. And then obviously it's automatically triggered to the individuals. So that's kind of like first sort of purchases, but then to sort of jump to the latter end of the customer journey. And actually, how can you use the data better then to retain as many customers as possible? We all know it costs, far more to acquire than it does to retain, and, no business wants to be sort of a leaky bucket. So, again, how can you use data to then better sort of trigger that reactivation campaign to retain a larger proportion of your database? And again, there's different levels that you can grow to be more sophisticated over time. So I understand, some brands on this, listening in might be like, oh, I can't do all those, really sophisticated AI things yet. So it's really, really good to sort of have levels to sort of build up to. So similar pattern to sort of before. The first one, again, is just finding that sort of right time. So you can look at an average of when over your sort of customer database does somebody normally start purchasing? Maybe that's sort of a business time frame that you sort of decide on as 12 months. So after 12 months, somebody hasn't made a purchase, you could send them a really nice, enticing offer to sort of draw them back. But the problem with that is that you might be giving a discount to somebody who doesn't need it and they might be looking to purchase soon. So you're potentially losing out on revenue there. Or worst case, they've already left and they've already churned and gone to a competitor. So that's not necessarily always the best route, but it is a route to sort of kickstart your activation campaigns. But the second level then is maybe looking at purchase patterns. So look at sort of similar segments of purchasing behaviours. So if you've got a group of customers that normally purchase every month, and then within a couple of months they haven't made a purchase, that's again your ideal trigger to trigger that reactivation campaign. So that's then looking at groups with similar behaviours. And then finally, like I said, the most sophisticated sort of way again is just to look at individual purchasing patterns. So we all know that each customer is unique from what they spend, what products they buy, how often they buy. So it's actually using that data again alongside sort of AI and predictive analytics, where you can sort of predict who is showing likelihood that they're most likely to sort of lapse or churn based off sort of their behaviours. And then most importantly, it's triggering that reactivation campaign to the individual moment that that individual is looking to lapse. That versus sort of, triggering it off a common broad sort of time frame. And then, just sort of wrap up basically all those things that I've just talked about, they're all automated. So, and that's just two examples of the top and tailing of the customer life cycle. As a business, you can set up hundreds and, at RedEye, there's clients that have thousands of sort of setup. And I'm still amazed that sometimes brands have none or very, very little automation set up, but they're so good to sort of set up in the background, and they do all the hard work for you because they react all off your customer data, and can sometimes, we know clients can sometimes bring up to 60% of their email revenue. So just a really good way to get value out of your customer data by letting them basically drive the decisions of what campaigns they should be sent and messages that should be sent.
Thank you so much, and two really great examples there. So if you've got any further questions on those, do contact Rachael direct or use the Q&A button as well. Would you believe it's 42 minutes into this webinar already? So with 5 panelists all wanting to share some more with you, I'm probably going to do a first round of final questions actually. So you've got a good chance actually now to put any Q&A or questions in the chat. If you want to get a burning question into our panelists, please do so. Leona, I'm going to come back to you. Thank you for waiting. Loyalty data, we haven't talked about that too much today. I would imagine there's tons of loyalty data inside the world of Levi's. How are you guys using it to drive sort of improved omni experiences?
Yeah, so I think before I kind of talked about all of our customer database and how the customer influences some of our optimizations online. And then we also have a loyalty program 24/7. And this, of course, serves up really rich customer data about where they're shopping, how much they're shopping with us, what channels they're shopping across. And having that clear view of our customer shopping behaviors really guides a lot of our omni-channel experiences and our retention strategies. And it can uncover itself in experience-led activation. So in stores, a good example where we have styling events in stores focused on head-to-toe looks, because we know that's how our female consumer likes to shop with us, to perhaps the more price-sensitive youth customer who likes to have more pre-sale events and offers tailored to them so that they're kind of getting access first. And then obviously, the ultimate idea is that we have the right experiences and stories that are served up to the right consumers against the right channel. We don't just look at kind of channels isolated, both our stores and our online experiences. We try to move those consumers from one channel to the next. Even outside of Levi's, I think it's kind of a well-known fact that most omni-channel customers are usually more valuable to a business. And that's something that we really take note of at Levi's. And I'll just kind of build on that by saying equally, we want to make sure that that experience from digital to stores is also as seamless as possible as well. We have specific retention strategies in place to really encourage that consumer to cross-pollinate and move from each channel. And it can be something really basic like redemption-based offers that encourage repeat purchases in stores versus online if we know that consumers shopped against both channels historically. The only other thing to mention is benefits wise, we want to make sure that those loyalty consumers have experience-based benefits. So I talked a little bit about in-store styling, but we also have amazing events in our stores to encourage that consumer to move in. And then we also dial up exclusives, so loyalty exclusives across our website and equally in our stores as well, to offer an attractive experience for those loyalty customers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, especially so new into role as well. I'm sure you've got tons on your to-do list at the moment as well. When Leona and I were talking yesterday, I did admit on a bit of a brand crush with Levi. So it's been really great to have you here today, and thanks for sharing the time with us as well. Nick, wrap up your part of the webinar world for me, please, sir. Let's go back to data again and helping, I guess, how data helps maximize the key areas of the customer journey. What would your advice be there?
Thanks, Darren. And yes, I've got a brand crush on Levi's too. Red tags were always my 501s. Just like, that's my history.
All the way. Yeah.
Yes. So of course, agree totally with what Rachel was saying as well. How you maximize whatever you're doing. We have, of course, got a lot of engines which make sure whatever you're looking for in Auto Trader, you will start to see similar things or things that are relevant to you, much like you would do on Amazon or on Netflix. So we try and make the journey that you're looking at bespoke. But actually, just to take it a step further, how powerful is data? The first thing you do on Auto Trader is you put your postcode in, and we will then refine so that the results you get are local to you. But when we have your postcode, we therefore know from basic ocean demographics who you are, where you are, your social status, etc., and rough household income. So we now know quite a lot about you. And just to take it one step further, going back to that electric vehicle move from ICE, from internal combustion engines, where we have to make the country move, so we have to know where to put chargers. We now know who is looking for an electric vehicle and where they live and what their household income is. And we can see when we look at heat maps that actually it is the very wealthy areas who are buying electric cars as opposed to the less wealthy areas. So Hampstead versus Tottenham, for example. No offense against Tottenham, but you can just see there's massive differences in London between wealth and not so much wealth, or even Altrincham and Wythenshawe and Manchester, that every city has these areas where people are looking. And we're using this data to go to the government to help them with their planning. We now go and present to Number 10 and the Treasury every couple of weeks and show them this data. This was just our intellectual property, really. But now we're sharing it to make sure that actually the government and the country can actually embrace this technology and actually make it work, because we have to save the planet. We have to move to electric vehicles. We can't have obnoxious fumes everywhere. We have to go clean. So we're trying to make it work. So we're using data in a way we never thought we would use data. To actually go and present to the Treasury every week is really bizarre. And they go, wow, this is powerful stuff. So we now know where we should be putting chargers. Yes, you don't need to put them in roads where everyone's got to drive, because everyone's got to drive, but you do need to put them into the areas where actually people are looking, can't afford them, and actually could use them. So it's using data to really drive something for the good. So it's quite philanthropic.
Nick, thank you for your insights today. I can remember Auto Trader in the days when I was a very young man buying used cars and nipping down to the newsagents to buy the paper version. So things have changed with your brand somewhat over the years. But great insight. Thank you for coming onto the panel today. Chris, it's a bit of a phrase, modern data stack. Hopefully a lot of our audience will understand it. But how does a modern data stack make it easy to do data warehousing, and then on the back of that create some insight you can do something with?
Yeah, also, Nick, if you can sneak a few into N4 around Haringey, Finsbury Park, that'd be great. I guess I've kind of talked about it a bit already, to be honest, but essentially it's just things that were hard are now easy. Things that used to be pretty much the competence of corporates and startups with incredibly talented engineers can now be done by dipshits like me. And I say that facetiously, obviously I am an engineer, but I have literally set up our entire data warehouse and platform and run it with almost no involvement. And and very little care, and the results kind of speak for themselves, really. It's one of those things that if you think you can't do it, it requires a little bit of technical literacy, but obviously there are platforms like Looker and stuff where you can kind of pipe this data in, and then it's a bit lower touch. But it is literally like quite, once I actually started at Stitch, because in my past I focused more on product, and obviously I took the CTO role and had to look a bit more broadly, and working a lot closer with marketing and e-commerce. And just, I think like the general takeaway would be look into it, because it's incredibly easy to take, for example, ad data and put it into a data warehouse, and then combine that with customer data from your e-commerce platform, and then report on both of them together. And these things used to be really hard, and they're not trivial yet. I think like some platforms claim to have linked it all up, but I haven't seen anything that's done it particularly well. But with a bit of effort or maybe some consultancy time or something like that, you can do the sorts of things that were literally only the affordable and available to companies that could afford data warehousing and all of this stuff before. And now, like, I think our data warehouse cost on Google Cloud, we're using BigQuery, costs about £1 a month. Like our data storage and retrieval and stuff, like it's at the scale most of us are probably talking about, maybe not Levi's and Auto Trader, but like at normal scale, most of us just don't generate that much data. Like big data does not exist for almost all companies. Like it's, millions of rows is still small data. Like it's cheap to store. So yeah, it's just a thing I'd urge people to look more into, because you probably can get a lot more than you think you can afford, because the tools these days have kind of changed the game a bit.
Cool, that's encouraging words for our audience. So thank you, Chris, to share that insight, and also for your contribution to the panel today, and coming back to spend some time with the Retail Bulletin, always appreciated. Before I go on to James and Rachel for their closing words, just remember that we are going straight out of this session into our fireside chat with Aurit Bar-Ad, who's the portfolio director at GK Software. So she's on her way, she's with us now. You can see her on screen already. The name is there, just not the face yet. But we are rolling straight from one session to another, so please don't go anywhere. James, wrapping things up with you, sir. When businesses are going through some kind of, vital technology transformation, it can often cause customer frustration because the customer experience gets disrupted. How can organizations that are going through some kind of vital tech change prevent that?
Yeah, it's quite the question, because it's running through everybody's minds that are either about to embark or already partway through a transformation. I think in a couple of ways, if customers are using a feature or functionality already, and it's known to all, then any technology or transformation should be seen as an enhancement, right? It doesn't need to be a reset. So your loyal customers shouldn't need to learn how to transact with you again. That presents a huge risk. So for example, if you're moving your environment to a cloud solution, then this is an enhancement. You benefit from site speed gains, security. Yes, you may now be able to run some of those additional on-site third-party automation tools that were talked about earlier on as a benefit of that move, but you don't need to overhaul and frustrate the customer. So if downtime can't be prevented, which it often cannot, make sure you're clearly communicating that. Ideally, incentivizing your customers as well. Highlight the benefits of what it means to have a few hours downtime, and try to accommodate this based on windows of where customers are not going to be overly active online. Another part is that customers don't always understand why they may fall into a particular segment or a particular group, which is yet to be migrated, where you're making technology changes. So customer A may know that his cousin, customer B, can see a totally new account area of self-serve, and can add to basket differently, perhaps even check out faster. But why can't he? And that's going to leave customers growing frustrated. So you need to manage this company-wide, actually, not just in the marketing teams, because this is where organizations need to start to think about, okay, how do we flatline during transformations when it comes to hierarchies to prevent these bottlenecks, and so that it can then move beyond the boardroom excuses for failed digital transformations. The other major factor, just to finish up on, is around technology first. Normally, from IT and board decision making in isolation, and then worry about it later, which ultimately sees every department impacted. Too many unknowns, morale is on the floor, you've got those growing customer frustrations, and not to mention the significant impact on budget. So in summary, I think it's about making sure that you're managing those customer expectations as much as you can up front, and just bearing in mind that the transformation your retail business is embarking on is going to affect everybody company-wide. So it shouldn't just be focused within certain isolated silo divisions of your business. Keep that regular communication, those regular stand-ups, those regular town halls between your business, so that it allows people to ask questions as well, and questions of what some people may find difficult to ask because they don't necessarily understand what the motive or the objective or the end game is.
Got it. And James, thank you so much for giving up your time. You've got lots going on by the sound of it in your work life. And I know in your personal life, you've got a couple of very, very little ones as well. 2 under 2,
Indeed,
isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, 2 under 2. Yes. So it's a pretty crazy world.
But thank you. Thank you for joining us and for your insight on the panel today. Rachel, no pressure. You're going to wrap this up for us, if that's okay. Just closing words, really, from you and RedEye and our sponsors, really. So anything you want to add to what our panelists have said today, any closing thoughts or words, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope everyone else has agreed listening. We've had some fantastic insights and from everybody, really, really good. I suppose, like, you know, from my perspective, I've always come at it, you know, any marketer can really get value from any piece of data. And I know we're sort of talking about whether businesses have lots of big data, even if they have really small amounts of data, you know, the value there that they can really use it to sort of drive those customer experiences. And I obviously come at it from how you can make it actionable and drive that customer experience. I love what Nick was talking about earlier and how you guys are using it for the better good of actually, you know, wider outside of your business. So, you know, just getting more value out of the data, not just for, you know, your business growth, but, you know, outside is fantastic. And I just think, you know, for any brand that's sort of thinking, okay, well, how can I do this? It's really, in essence, just having the right tech and partners that can sort of help you get the most out of your data. You know, they can ingest it, they can help combine it, help, you know, with getting, you know, helping you understand those insights. You know, there obviously are certain providers, you know, out there that can sort of help you on that journey. But yeah, for me, it's like I said, any piece of data is valuable for a marketer in my eyes.
Thank you, Rachel. And again, thanks to RedEye for its sponsorship of today. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to say thank you to our current panel of 5. Stay with us. You might hear the words recording stop over the top, and then you might hear the words recording started. That's so we can split the panels and publish each of the sessions separately, even though they are just rolling from one to the other.